with a hat. Is there another one on this side, and this young lady over here with a sign and and you will help us find our questions. Yes, ma'am.
I spoke with you on October 1st briefly when you were at Cedar Falls, and I asked about the Accelerating the End of Breast Cancer Act, and I'm wondering if you've had time to look at that and what your stand is on that.
Yeah, there are now two separate bills on a related issue. Which one is, who's the sponsor? Which one is that one?
This would be lead sponsor would be Senator Grassley for the Republican
right.
side.
So I think we have signed. If we haven't, we should be. We can't sign on to a bill until we're actually in session. So I think it's our intention to sign on to that bill as soon as we get back.
Can you co-sponsor?
Yeah, that's what I mean by signing on. I apologize. That's what it means by co-sponsoring. So there's a second bill, but the Grassley bill is one that we've looked at. Our staff has looked through it. Obviously, if Senator Grassley's for it, I'm not just saying it because I'm in Iowa. He's a very serious policymaker. And our intention is to co-sponsor it, but we have to be in session. We're not in session until next week. You can't co-sponsor a bill until, I know it's a Senate rule. As soon as we get into session, we should be co-sponsoring.
So I should count this as a commitment that you will co-sponsor?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. In fact, I think we've already sent in whatever the paperwork is to his office to have him add us on. Thank you very much. That was easy. Come on, guys. Yes. Well, we're coming for you. Here, these are the signs over here. We should have plenty of time. Yes, ma'am. All right. Gentleman there.
First of all, thanks for coming to Iowa, Senator Rubio. I'm greatly concerned about something that affects my children and grandchildren, and that's the national debt. Can you give us a rundown as to what you would do to help prevent that catastrophe from happening, of it getting any larger?
Yeah,
to reduce
one of the reasons why Barack Obama is such a catastrophic president is because he has grown the debt more than every president before him combined. We need to deal with what's causing the debt in order to fix it. If you bring the debt under control, you've got to deal with what's causing it. Let me tell you what's not causing it. Defense spending is not causing it. Foreign aid is not causing it. It's less than 1% of our budget. What's causing our long-term debt is the way Social Security and Medicare are structured for my generation and for my children. Now, I'm from Florida. This is not well known, but there are a lot of people in Florida on Social Security and Medicare. One of them is my mother. I don't want anything to change for her negatively, and it doesn't have to. We can help balance our budget, and we can save Medicare and Social Security. We don't have to change anything for her. We don't have to disrupt it for her. We don't have to disrupt it for people that are about to retire or people that are already retired. But our next president better tell you the truth. There is no way that Social Security and Medicare works the same for me as it did for her. It either goes bankrupt or we reform it. And the sooner we reform it, the better it's going to be. And what do I mean by reform it? Instead of retiring at 67, I may have to retire at 68. That's not unreasonable. If I've made a lot of money, that means I sold a lot of books, don't I? Now available on paperback if you're interested. If I've made a lot of money and I've been financially successful, my Social Security benefits won't grow as fast as someone who made less money. Medicare could very well be the option of using my Medicare money to buy a private plan that I like better. We somewhat have that already through Medicare Advantage. These are not unreasonable things to ask of my generation, who's 20 years away from retirement, in exchange for not disrupting it for people that are on it now or who are about to retire in the next 10 years. I don't think this is too much to ask, and if we do that, we can save these programs. It'll still be the best program in the world, and we can bring our debt under control. If we don't, it'll continue to grow, and soon we will live in a country where we spend more money servicing the debt than we do on the national defense. And that's what's so irresponsible. And let me just say one more point about the debt. I wish that I could stand here and say it is all the Democrats' fault. This is a bipartisan debt. Both parties have contributed to it, which is one of the reasons why I believe and I support a constitutional convention of the states to put a balanced budget amendment into the Constitution. Congress will never pass that bill. They will never put it on. Because while they claim to be for a balanced budget, they don't like the choices it requires us to make. When I'm President of the United States, I will pull the weight and the attention of the White House behind an effort to allow you to make that decision. Because ultimately, who's making decisions for us? It shouldn't be the federal government in all matters. There is a mechanism that exists to reform the Constitution, to do what we need to be doing, and we will, not just term limits on Congress and the judiciary, but a balanced budget amendment.
Thank you for being here today, Senator Rubio. I have a foreign policy question.
Yes.
In the war on ISIS, some of the best, or most effective, rather, fighting forces on the ground have been the Kurdish forces in northern Syria and northern Iraq, while at the same time our NATO ally Turkey has been aggressively responding to Kurdish civilians in East Turkey. If the prospect of Kurdish independence arose, how would the Rubio administration respond to that?
Well, a couple points. Number one is the reason why you feel so insecure about our strategy towards ISIS is because Barack Obama doesn't have one. And unfortunately, 3 weeks ago, on Sunday night, he went on national television, spoke to the American people, and I wish he hadn't. Because he basically said, everything's going great. We've had a few hiccups, but I'm going to keep the same strategy. And of course, people feel less secure than ever before. You are right to say the Kurdish forces, who by themselves, by the way, there is not a tremendous amount of unity among them. There are conflicting groups even within the Kurdish groups, have been very effective. But they've been very effective at doing what they do best, which is protecting Kurdish areas. And we should be of assistance to them in that regard. They are very capable fighters, and they have shown the ability to defeat ISIS and others when the areas that they live in are threatened. And I want to help them 100%. The broader problem, though, is that ISIS is not just in the Kurdish areas. They are primarily in Sunni areas. And the Kurds do not want to and cannot liberate and hold Sunni areas. Which is why what we need in order to solve this problem is a broader coalition made up primarily of Sunni Arab forces on the ground. That means Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Jordan and others need to provide troops. And we'll provide some special operations forces and more airstrikes and logistical support. But these Sunni areas can only be liberated and ultimately held in a stable way by Sunnis themselves. And that's not happening because this president has no strategy. And on the issue of Kurdish independence, it's a complex issue. Because I think there are significant doubts about whether Syria and Iraq will ever again be unified countries in the way we thought about them in the past. Especially when you have a government in Baghdad, run by Shia, have no interest in sharing power with the Kurds or sharing power with others. And in the Kurdish groups, there are a number of groups that we work with very closely, and then there are a number of groups that, quite frankly, there's at least one in particular that's been labeled a terrorist group, that we label as a terrorist group, and that our allies in Turkey are very uncomfortable. So I would not make hard commitments on independence for Turkish groups right away, but I do think they deserve the right of more self-determination. It is the only way you're ever going to be able to hold together what we once knew to be Iraq before ISIS blew it apart. And I think in Syria as well, the Kurds that live in Syria deserve an opportunity at some level of autonomy and self-determination. But we really can't even begin that process until we eradicate this dangerous group called ISIS, a group that has an apocalyptic vision of the future. They're not just going to go away on their own. Either they win or we win, and we need to defeat them militarily. We need to help the Sunni Arabs defeat them militarily, and when I'm president, we will.